Hello, everybody. It's Adam from BBD Boom here, and I'm really delighted to have Diane Carroll, Group Sales Director from Countrywide Freight, with us today. And we're going to be understanding all about Diane's journey with HubSpot so far. Diane, thanks very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
So, for everyone's benefit, Diane, why don't we just start by you telling us a little bit about Countrywide Freight? As the name suggests, you're in logistics, but a little bit more about what you do and also your role as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were founded in 1976. We are quite niche in that we operate in the specialist market of Irish sea freight. So in other words, if somebody's got goods to move from GB to Ireland or vice versa, we will handle those goods. We will deal with the customs clearance and we'll move anything from sort of a carton up to, some weird and wonderful things that we've moved include wind turbines. So cover quite a wide range.
And I imagine you've been busy with Brexit. Just as an aside, that's probably kept you busy.
Yes, so I didn't join the business until July last year, so most of the pain of Brexit was out of the way before I joined. But it's interesting that there've been a lot of businesses who have ceased to trade with Ireland at the time of Brexit, who are gradually starting to dip a toe in the water, and it's because of providers like us who can, we have the expertise to navigate that quite complex landscape, so they don't have to think about it.
That's brilliant. And I guess Group Sales Director, you're responsible for all the revenue generation across the business.
Pretty much, although we do have a parcel division in which I am less involved. Fundamentally, I was brought into the business to grow and to sort of create a slightly more cohesive sales team than we previously had, and also to professionalise our systems. So looking at a CRM system was absolutely vital for me in doing that.
Brilliant. Well, that's a really good segue into
Happy to
HubSpot.
help.
So let's talk about HubSpot then. So can you, obviously, we spoke in your journey of deciding which CRM you wanted to go for.
Mm-hmm.
Could you tell everybody kind of what journey was? Like, what was the trigger to decide you need a new CRM, and how did you go about finding HubSpot amongst all the other competitors in the market?
It was one of the first things that I did when I joined the business. So I think my first conversation with HubSpot was about my third week with this business back in July. I've worked with a range of CRM systems in the past. I've touched on HubSpot previously, but as more of a marketing platform. But I knew that it was something that I did want to look at. I looked at two other systems as well, one that was a far larger sort of corporate rather than having the flexibility of HubSpot, a more corporate piece, and also something that was offered by the current provider of our accounting system. So yeah, my first few weeks in the role, I had calls with all of those people.
Now that's really interesting because I think you summed up some of the options that lots of our customers face. So perhaps maybe something like Salesforce or Dynamics, one of those kind of big guys that everyone's heard of, and no one got fired for buying IBM type software.
Yeah.
And then you probably got some sort of incumbent finance system or ERP where they actually say, oh, by the way, why don't you buy our CRM? So
Yeah.
what was it that appealed to you about HubSpot?
Absolutely everything, to be perfectly honest. So time was absolutely of the essence, and cost was also a significant consideration because nobody wants to join a new business and suddenly hemorrhage money all over the place. So I did need to make it cost effective. So price was a key driver. When I understood the pricing around HubSpot, I realized that it was by far the most competitive solution around. I also needed something that wasn't going to take forever to implement. And the calls, before you guys got involved, the calls that I had with HubSpot, it was clear that we could very much drive this at a pace that worked for us. But ultimately, it was just the sheer user friendliness of it. Its capabilities exceed those major systems that we talked about, which I've worked with before, and also the ability to configure it myself and manage it myself without ongoing maintenance costs was something that really appealed to me.
Brilliant. Yes, we hear that quite a lot actually. So you quite quickly decided that HubSpot was the right thing for you. Now, why did you decide to involve a partner like us to help you get the system set up?
It was about momentum ultimately. So I discussed with HubSpot the I can't remember the term, but the self-implementation option and then the partner option. Um, I probably had unjustified concerns. I was concerned that my IT capabilities weren't going to be good enough, which now seems a bit laughable given how simple HubSpot is to configure and to implement. But also, I really wanted somebody to hold us accountable, and I needed to have those regular calls with somebody who could help me. I had a very clear vision of what I wanted the system to look like, but that was just very much in terms of the way that it would work rather than nuts and bolts of it. I really wanted to work with somebody who could help me translate the vision that I had into an actual implementation of the system.
That's really interesting because we have different types of customers. Some who want the guided onboarding that we did for you, and other people who want the kind of fully managed one. And I think when I spoke to you, it's really obvious you wanted the guided one because you, like you say, you knew exactly what you wanted. Um,
Yeah.
there was an element of you kind of doing things fresh within the business, like creating some new processes that, just clearer ways of doing things. And because you've obviously got experience with CRMs, some of those bigger ones, you were the perfect candidate for the guided onboarding. Would you be able to just explain to people listening, so what does that involve, and how did you find that, and how flexible was it, things like that?
It was really flexible, and actually, just to pick up on your previous point about sort of changes within the business, part of this change for me has also been recruiting new people and putting in a new structure, and it's been great to be able to do the HubSpot implementation alongside the creation of that structure, so the two are completely aligned from the beginning. In terms of the guided implementation, I've had very frequent calls and have involved other members of the team as well, with Clorinda, who was our implementation partner in this. Those calls have taken place at a pace that worked for us. So Clorinda wasn't at all phased when I was saying, actually, rather than waiting a week for the next call, can we do one in 2 days' time? And we actually completed the implementation ahead of the time frame that I had hoped for, just because the questions that we had were being answered at such a pace by Clorinda that it meant that we could keep moving forward. So the calls, generally I came to those calls, I kept sort of almost like a user requirements file and a progress log. And during the week, between calls where I was coming across things that I thought, actually, I wonder if I can do this. It'd be nice to do this, or I'm a bit stuck here. I would keep a note of that. And then literally a couple of days later, could have the call. And sometimes I started the calls with the word help. And Clorinda was just absolutely unflappable. There was very little that I said, can we do this, that she said no, actually. So I became used to this great scenario where I sort of envisaged something, thought, oh, that can't be possible. And then Clorinda said, of course we can. And that's just exactly what you want from a software implementation of any kind.
That's great to hear. Yeah, Clarinda's very calm, isn't she?
She
She
is.
can
She
cope with
is.
most things, which is brilliant.
Yes.
So we've gone through that guided onboarding. Um, Before we talk about, I guess the results or the outcome where we're at the moment with your HubSpot and how your business is using it, um, what advice would you have for anybody thinking about setting up HubSpot? Because I think one of the challenges sometimes we face is that it does look really easy.
Mm.
Um, it does look, it's all nice and shiny, and there's loads of help articles and chat, 24/7 support. But what advice would you have for somebody in your situation that is thinking about buying HubSpot, and what should they consider um, when they're doing that onboarding? What things are really important that you do from your end to make it successful?
I think the biggest piece of advice that I could give is something that I didn't do very well. I think, it's great to learn from your mistakes, but if other people can learn from my mistakes, that's even better. I didn't have, and I think perhaps because it was an evolving department, I didn't have that full end-to-end process mapped out, which meant that as we started, so I had a couple of people using HubSpot as we were implementing it. And that was really good, actually. That was really helpful. But they were sort of saying, oh, hang on a minute, we need to do this here, we need to do that here, we need to create this stage. So I did have a little bit of rework where I went back and added stages into the process, added sequences, for example, added automation, where I think that rework could have been avoided if I'd had that clear mapping. Other than that, the only thing that I would say to people is, God, don't be scared of it. I am no techie, and yet I have managed to do this with Clarinda's support, with the support of the knowledge articles that are on HubSpot. And they've only had to pull me out from under my desk once, so that's definitely a good sign.
Brilliant. Where are you at now with HubSpot? How is it working for you?
It's working really well. We are fully operational, so we sort of it kind of went live at the beginning of December. Now, December is traditionally an interesting time in the freight industry. So I think I'd be lying if I said it was, all plain sailing by Christmas. It wasn't. But we're now in a position, the team are all using it. They are all big fans of it. Some of the features that they particularly like are the ability to set up chase sequences following submitting a quote. Without them having to input that. They find that they're managing their time a lot better because of the task creation. It's great from their perspective to be able to see when an email has been engaged with. And from my perspective, it's I have a visibility that I didn't have previously of how my team is performing, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, where we're successful and where we're not. So from a sales point of view, it's working really, really well. I am delighted with it. The added bonus that I didn't expect, I sort of left marketing out of the equation because I was so keen to get sales up and running. And I thought that we perhaps wouldn't have time to touch on the marketing. And I was wrong, because the time that we've had from Clarinda has allowed us to focus on that. And I've actually been able to do some marketing activity through the, we've not paid for the marketing hub, but even that free access has allowed me to do some marketing activity that I did not expect to be doing at this stage.
That is fantastic. It's a sort of bonus.
Absolutely, yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. Wasn't expecting it, so really nice to have.
So my final question then, Diane, thank you so much for your time today. My final question is what are your plans or your aspirations for HubSpot over the next 12 months, let's say?
So first and foremost, HubSpot itself is running great, but our data is still a little bit questionable. We've got a lot of work to do around that. And that's just an internal thing. But again, I would say to anybody, don't wait for your data to be perfect to start using HubSpot. Get into HubSpot what you've got, and then you can work on cleaning it up as time goes on. So I need to, it's sort of dotting the I's and crossing the T's in terms of the cleanliness of the system. I would really like to upgrade the marketing piece, should my budget allow, to the Marketing Professional Hub, because I think that will unlock a huge amount more value for me. And I think just using, my team all have very different voices in the way that they approach the market. And what's been great so far is that they've been able to create snippets, create templates that is their voice when they're reaching out to the market. Over time, over the next few months, we should be able to see what works and what doesn't. And that will then allow us to create more automation, more templates, more of a consistent voice, and therefore, maximise our sales growth.
Diane, that's fantastic. Really exciting to hear how straightforward the implementation's been and how it's given you a platform to grow the business and be successful in your new role. So thank you very much. Any final comments before we go?
No, just a massive thanks to you and the team, and of course Clarinda in particular, for your support in the implementation, and long may your success continue.
Thanks, Diane, and really appreciate your time today, and best of luck with your sales over the next 12 months.
Thank you. Thanks very much.